Today's guest on the practice is someone who knows how to command a room, but even more powerfully, how to own and tell his story. Craig Wortmann is a serial entrepreneur and a best-selling author of What's Your Story, founder of Sales Engine, and the academic director of Kellogg Sales Institute, where he teaches leaders how to get good at getting great. I was also his student. He's built companies, coached executives, taught thousands, and lived at the intersection of performance and presence. And a few years ago, Craig's life changed forever. He lost his leg to cancer, a moment that shattered everything he thought he knew about resilience, about strength, identity, and control. And what followed has been a journey of grief, grit, rebuilding, and learning how to live and love in a new body with a sense of purpose. In this conversation, we talk about many things, the beauty of falling apart and the discipline it takes to lead well, and how to pick yourself up and put yourself back together, and the freedom that comes when you stop pretending it's easy. If you've ever found yourself in a season of reinvention, or you're trying to lead others while still healing yourself, this episode will meet you there. I'm looking forward to this conversation, man.
Fantastic. Me too.
I guess what I'd love to do just to begin, for us is can you tell me a little bit of your origin story? I mean, where are you from? Who formed you? How did you become this guy? Right?
Yeah, I love it. I'm so excited to talk. I grew up in a town called Rockford, Illinois, so about 80 miles, I don't know, give or take, northwest of Chicago, and a cool little town to grow up in. Look, I am the product of my mom and dad. My mom and dad are no longer with us. They were just...
What was mom like?
They were fantastic. Mom was, before her time, she was, this is in the 1940s. She got a master's degree when a lot of women at that time didn't even go to college. So she was a master's in speech pathology, encouraged by her father, my grandfather. So she was ahead of her time. Dad was a pediatrician for 4.5 decades and just an awesome one. So they were great people. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. And I knew that. What's cool is I knew that when I didn't appreciate it obviously as much as a kid, but I knew they were something special, which is kind of cool.
So growing up, you felt loved and supported. Did they, looking back, reflecting back as a parent now, right? What were the things they did well, and what have you carried forward?
Looking back, I realize now, and it's interesting, Ari, it took me a long, long time to get this to the level of consciousness. They went above and beyond for everyone around them. I mean, all the time, crazy amounts of above and beyond. And I have a million stories about that we don't have to tell, but it took me a while to realize, because it was in the water, right? It was just in the air, and my house was part of the culture of the family. And so you don't notice it because it's just the way it's just breathing, right? And now looking back as a grown up, it's like, wow, they, every story I remember about them, the memories are like, oh, that's them going above and beyond for somebody in their life, somebody who needed some help or needed something. Myself included, obviously. Mm-hmm. So it's cool. It's cool to look back on that.
Do you have a seminal memory of how Dad was influential for you?
One of the most fun memories of being a kid, really, really small, was people coming to the house. This is back in the day when people would come over to our house and knock on the door, usually at the holidays, to thank my dad for taking care of their children. And so it was just super cool I can remember being a little kid, and my dad would answer the door, or my mom would answer the door, and there'd be some person there with their child just to hand Dad a thing of flowers or a thing of candy or whatever and just say, thank you for being our doctor. I just thought that was crazy cool. And then fast forward a whole lot of years, he was very elderly, and I was at Booth in the business school, and I had read a report I'd read some research on CEOs, and it sort of shook me because I read this research, and it said one of the things that CEOs, the most accomplished CEOs, and they were talking about men exclusively, they had done this research on men, one of the things that they missed the most, regretted the most, is their fathers never said they were proud of them. And so I got my dad in the car and we drove to Wisconsin. And I said, I want to thank you for something. You have always told me, even when I didn't deserve it, that you were proud of me. And I told him about the research, and that was a moment.
What was that moment like? I mean, tears everywhere.
I remember thanking him. I started the conversation by saying, I want to thank you for something. And he was like, what? And I said, I want to thank you for everything you didn't do to me. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I started to unspool this research. And I just said, you never did all the stuff that I read about in this article that dads can do. Like, I just did, like, I grew up with you. I didn't know this stuff was even, I mean, I knew intellectually that stuff is possible, but that would have never even occurred to you.
So what's the emotion you're holding back right now? Just
how
much love you have?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we cried. We're driving along in Wisconsin, and we're both crying. Dad was a crier. I'm a crier. So it was good.
Yeah.
Like, that's the emotion. It is just full on gratitude. And Mom was the same way.
That's amazing. So do you feel like you didn't leave anything unsaid?
No. Nope.
God.
Full stop.
Full stop.
Never left anything unsaid.
So how did your career evolve? Like
in fits and starts?
Yeah, like what's your story?
With tons of failure?
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah.
A lot of the world knows you, right? A lot of the world knows you on LinkedIn and your classes for your successes, right? I mean, that's... You tell you have failure stories, right? But how many people know the genuine fits and starts and the struggles that we all go through struggles, right? So some of that is like really, that's sort of the meat, right? The messiness.
The messiness, yeah. Yeah, it's a winding, they say it's a winding road. It sure is. So, I'm not joking when I say fits and starts. I mean, I didn't, like a lot of young people, didn't know what I wanted to be, how to figure it out. And, Mom and Dad, close friends, pushed me to just try some stuff. And so and I'm skipping a few chapters, but I got lucked into a job at IBM in Chicago, and they took a risk on a kid who knew I was in politics in Capitol Hill. So I knew nothing about business. I had not studied business. I knew nothing about technology, and I knew nothing about sales. And IBM, tech company, put me in sales in Chicago in business. So that's just lucky. And they just took a chance on me, and I am forever thankful to them.
Is it lucky, or do you think they saw something?
They saw something, so they gave us that is back in the day when they would test your personality.
Yep.
Like I'm that aged,
yeah,
where they tested our personality. They did something I never figured out what it means. You may know, called the IPAT test. And I guess I did well enough on the test, obviously, that they said this kid may, it's like 21, 22 years old, something like that, 22, I guess. And they said this kid might be able to do this, and they took a risk. And that was just, that was a great day when I got that call. It was just a great day.
So you got the job.
Yeah.
And then when did you realize you could sell?
Well, so it fits and starts. So I got the job. I got to Atlanta, Georgia, where my sales school, this is back in the day when sales school, at least at IBM, was 1 year. They taught us how to sell for a year. Not a week, a year. And I trained in Atlanta, so we go back and forth.
Let me pause for a second, right? 1 year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about how we consume information in fits. Like, can I do it in 15 seconds or 90 seconds? Or I got to do a course over an hour.
Yeah.
Like a year.
Well, and I know we're going to get there, Ari, I hope in this conversation, it informs, that experience forms some of the work that I do now. But this is why I say, and I've said this 1,000 times on stages all over the world, I am forever thankful to IBM for what they gave me. They believed in something. They saw something that I did not see. And they helped me get it. And so I went to Atlanta. I mostly sucked. And I remember another moment where I stepped out of a room because we had just been told that they are going to stack rank the class of 50, 1 to 50, based on our performance over a few weeks in Atlanta in these role plays. they're going to stack rank them, and the ones at the bottom ain't going to have a job. And so I left the room, called my parents, said, I'm not going to make it. They said, Craig, you're like a month into this job. And I said, I'm not going to survive. Like in 3 weeks, I'll be fired. And, you know, being my mom and dad, they said, you can do it, the whole thing, that conversation. I hung up, I turned around, and this guy named John, he saw me, and I was in tears because I was just horrified. Freaking out. I mean, my little blue suit, my little red tie, my white shirt. I'm standing in the hall with my shiny shoes, and I'm crying. You know, I'm like in tears because I'm like
fully wet.
I'm like buck 05, right? And I'm like 3 feet tall, and he grabs me by the shoulders. This big guy. He was one of the trainers at IBM, and he just looked me in the eye and he said, "You can do this, and you're going to do it, and I'm going to make sure that you don't fail." And it was just one of those moments in the hallway, and he turned me around with my shoulders. He shoved me back in that room, and he said, "You're going to do this." And somehow he made me believe.
So what happened there? Like you started to believe, you did the hard work?
I just and in that order. So I you know, he and my folks, you know, that you can do this. And I didn't really believe it, but when he said it, someone who didn't really know me, you know, of course my mom and dad are going to say it, right? But when he said it, I started to believe. And 3 weeks later, I was top 3 in the class.
Got it. Is that where you started developing the rhetoric that, I don't know if you still use in the classroom, discipline, knowledge, and skill?
Yep. I mean, I didn't know those. I knew the terms, but it didn't
come together that way.
It didn't come together that way. But now I look back on I look back on my whole career, and it's like the difference maker was discipline. Always discipline.
Always. So doing the work?
Always discipline.
Was there a moment in your life where you realized, like, holy shit, like, if I do the work, I'll outkick the competition 90% of the time?
I don't know if there's a moment, to be honest. I don't know if there's a moment. There's a series of moments where I think step by step, moment by moment, I came to the realization, like, this life and success is yes, it's about knowledge. Yes, it's about skill. It's a lot about discipline. You either do it or you don't.
Yep. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yep.
When did you know that you could captivate people? Like, when did you have an experience where you owned a room and you were like, oh my God, right? What did it feel like for you? And then what was the takeaway where you're like, oh, this might be a real skill of mine?
It crept up on me in two places, and they happened one after another. I was writing my book on story. I was writing my What's Your Story book. And, you know, as a consequence of writing a book, you have some presentations because you got all this stuff, right? You're reading, you know, you're writing chapters 3 and 4, and you're like, well, I could create an hour presentation about this. So I did, and I started testing that, just giving it away, and, you know, calling companies and just opportunistically saying, hey, would you value like a lunch and learn if I come in and talk about storytelling for an hour? And they're like, sure. And I started to realize, like, people are getting into this stuff. And then, and you know a bunch of the story, but then I got a call from Chicago Booth, and they said, you know, we need somebody to put together a new MBA course that looks at entrepreneurship but combines it with sales, and you've kind of been this weird hybrid of both. And I developed that course, and being a business school, they measure everything. So I had horrible imposter syndrome. I was standing in front of these unbelievably talented elite MBA students. And I'm like, why am I in this room? What value could they possibly be getting? And then to answer your question, you know, end of the quarter comes, I get the evaluations, and the amazing gift that you get when someone actually takes 20 minutes to write how you affected their life in the evaluation. That was, if there was a moment, Ari, that's the moment.
That's so cool. We were talking about this earlier. What class was I in? I was in your second class.
You were in my second class. I'm horrified by that.
It's amazing. I mean,
I'm so glad I didn't damage you too badly.
I mean, well, you damaged me quite a bit. Like, I'm here now.
Since I didn't really know what I was doing, but we made it.
But that class was super meaningful for me. It was a class for me that what you may not have appreciated, or maybe you do now, but back then it's like, oh, like there's value in being able to own a room, to have a conversation, and to qualify objections, and to connect with people. And you and I talk about everything is selling, right? Yep. From giving medical advice, right, to having a conversation with your kids about what college to attend. All of it is selling, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
it is.
I found that class when I took it, I was like, holy shit. There's a structure I can use, right? Right, your win, loss, your story journal, all of that stuff. I mean, it was super impactful, man. So thank you.
I'm so glad. It's kind of unbelievable to me still to this day that Chicago Booth, at the time, the Graduate School of Business at Chicago was willing to build that course, was willing to let that course be taught.
Totally.
Because it's sales.
School. And it's a
sales.
quant school.
Yeah. And there, to this very day as we sit here, there are elite institutions that are allergic to the word sales. They literally will not use that word. They'll use growth. They'll use business development. Even if you really want to abstract it out, persuasion, influence. And I'm fine with those words, but just call it what it is.
Right.
It's sales.
So when you had that moment and you got those reviews, what made you keep doing that? And tell me, like, you kept growing from there.
That lit a fire. I mean, like IBM before, it lit a fire in me. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a need. People need it. When they wake up to what sales actually is, or are caused to think about and reflect on what sales actually is, it can really transform their life. Yeah. I mean, I say this with no hesitation. I say it very ambitiously. This set of skills, knowledge, and discipline will change your life. Period.
100%. I'm in, as an old coach of mine would say, I'm in violent agreement with that. That makes perfect sense to me. So what do most people get wrong about the notion of selling? Or what are some common mistakes?
The first thing people get wrong about selling is the mindset that they have around selling. We've all come across yucky salespeople. And for some reason, sales is a field that people, when they stop and think about or are asked about what is a word that you associate with this word, salesperson, at least 50% of the response is negative. Manipulative, sleazy, scummy, gross, et cetera. And then, persistent, sometimes smart, go-getter. There's some positives in there too, but I've done this exercise for almost 20 years now, and I love doing it. I show the word salesperson in a big ballroom, and I say, just shout out your answers, and it's half yucky and half okay. And I say, well, why is that? Like, why are those words in your mind? Because they're in mine too. I've come across yucky people. Like, they're in my mind too. But why don't we associate those words with entrepreneurs or doctors or consultants? And we just don't for some reason. And we know why. So I think the first thing that people get wrong is the mindset. The way I try to get after that and begin to unlock people's mindset and perhaps posit a different way of thinking about sales is to offer my definition of sales, which is really, really simple. Sales is about helping people make progress in their lives. God, that's all it is.
Sales is about helping people make progress in their lives.
That's all it is. And if you think for half a second about that, it's a mindset. And if I hold that mindset to be true, which I do, it animates everything I do next.
Every interaction.
How I listen to you, how I ask you questions. When you say something that I'm not a good fit for, the next thing out of my mouth is, Ari, that's interesting. That is not something I am capable of helping you with, but I know who is, and I can connect you with them. I'm not a good resource for you. That's the opposite of a manipulative, yucky interaction.
So if that's the notion of selling, aren't you doing that in every single moment of every single day? And isn't that really exhausting?
Yeah, I mean, so let me qualify this a little bit. So I always say I'm not one of those people who teach sales and do sales that says you're selling 24 hours a day. I'm not one of those people, because sometimes you're sleeping. Sometimes you're running a spreadsheet. Sometimes you're changing the coffee filter. I get it, right? But I am one of those guys that says in most of your life, when you're interacting with another person, you're either building a relationship, you're helping try to convince someone to do something, change their mind, persuade them to live healthier, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, I've known you for well over a decade, and it is part of your DNA. What are your habits that allow you to do that? So yes, discipline, knowledge, and skill, but like, what do you do? How do you prep for today? How do you prep for your days?
Let me challenge one thing you said, doctor. It's not part of my DNA. I mean, you're the scientist, my friend. It's not part of my DNA. It's become part of my DNA or whatever.
Right.
It's become part of my muscle memory.
Right.
Again, stuff you know way more about than I do. I sucked at IBM. Sucked in the first couple of years.
Right.
Yeah, I survived training and I did really well in training. But when I got the bag and the brochures and I started walking the south side of Chicago, knocking on doors, I was not good because I thought selling was telling you what to do. You know, we call it selling and telling rather than asking and listening. Because I wasn't comfortable enough skin. I didn't know enough to ask you. And that's not an excuse. That's on me. That's my fault.
Right. But where I'm going to push back is you weren't talented at sales off the bat.
No. God, no.
And you built, right, the habit structure.
Yes.
That has allowed you to make it automatic for you, right? There are things that you do now that allow you to listen and be captured in the moment, the present moment, right? Before we started this, you let Jill know where you're going to be for the next 2 hours.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You don't have to think about that or anything else. You block the time so you're here.
Yes.
So you do these things innately, and I would argue that excellence is never built on the first try.
Yeah, I mean, so let's unpack that a little bit. So you're right, yes, and you're putting the light on some of the habits that have taken me a while to develop, but yeah, I've gotten there, and they're great. You know, so think about this chat we're having. This preparation for this starts, a month ago. When it lands on my calendar, the first thing that happens is the 2 hours before this get blocked. Because what that does is, and that's just a habit, it's again, I've built it in through help. I'm lucky that I have folks that help me with my calendar. That all stuff, that is a discipline that gets put in because, it still stuns me to this very day that people schedule a block of time and then at the exact same moment, from 10 to 11, and then they schedule one from 11 to 12. That's the laws of physics don't allow for that. So that's always been a mystery to me. And so, that happens. So what do I do with that couple of hours, right? Well, I change my clothes. I sit down with your questions. I start thinking about your questions, and I start thinking about my responses and what questions I might ask. And I just start thinking about that. And that's just the simplest habit. But I will say that something I've been thinking about a lot over just the last couple of years is we move so fast and we move faster. And I am a huge nerd about technology. I love technology, and it can be a huge, as we all know, a huge distraction. And I just think, as much as we need to form great habits and disciplines, there's that word again, there is a constant pressure that from all kinds of other external sources and internal sources that push against those habits.
You referred to this in the classroom years ago as catching these magic moments. That was just one of them,
Yep.
Right? So what I hear you saying is that in order for you to connect, right, and to be present in the moment, you allocate the appropriate amount of time. You have a ritual and a routine that allows you to prepare and engage in the moment that you're going to be in.
Yes.
To remove the distractions, right? The technology, all the tools. And so the learning, right, is that if you want to amplify your time, right, you actually have to dedicate the time in the beginning so that what you do in the moment, you're totally present and ready for.
That's right. That's exactly right. Because then you can find some room both before the moment and in the moment just to think deeply, to be present, to try some things.
Talk to me about where you're messy.
I'm still... Let me think about this.
We all have bathrooms, right? And we know what bathrooms are used for. right? And the best way that I find that you prepare to not be messy, right, in the stages and places that you need it are to know exactly where and when and how you're messy, right? Nobody wants to take a shit on public TV or on camera, right? We want to do it in the right spaces and places. And so I'm just curious for you, like, where are
Yeah.
the places where you give yourself the room to become unhinged about a topic, about a thing, and figure out what you need to do with it?
Yeah, well, this is an interesting question. Where I'm messy, I'm going to take it a place. You tell me whether this is fruitful and where you want to go. So I do a lot of experiments. I run a lot of experiments, and that creates a mess. So in my sales and business life, I will say, you know what? I'm going to experiment with AI, and I create a mess because I have no idea what I'm doing, and that's the way I learn. Or I'll say on a bigger level, a bigger stage, I'll say I'm going to create a new course and I'm going to go teach it.
God, you just did something for me there. So by using the word experiment, you created a level of safety around testing, trying, and failing.
It's all an
But
experiment.
that's so interesting,
We
right?
are an experiment.
Yeah, but
I am an experiment.
I feel like there's, one of the things for me with my staff and my people is I want stuff ahead of time so that I can show up well. I don't want to show up poorly for everybody, right? I have a messy process of processing my thoughts that need to come out, etc. But they're experiments and ways in which you learn, and you learn from them, right? So it's how you learn from the failures. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're experimenting in the business in my sales engine company right now on some business to consumer stuff, which is just so much fun because it's an experiment and it's super messy. We get on the phone, my team and I, we argue because we don't know yet we don't know what we don't know. So we're feeling our way in the dark. And it's, we know where we want to go. We think we know where we want to go, but we don't know how to get there because I'm a B2B guy. I've been a B2B guy my whole life. So I'm standing up a B2C part of my company, which is super exciting and terrifying. And it's messy by definition.
It's so interesting. How do you decide what ideas in those kind of dialogues, which ones win out? Which ones do you go with, right? I mean, how do you decide which ones are the best ones? And I'm going to give you a little this is asking for advice. One of my defaults is that I feel like my ideas are best, right? The egocentrism of that, and gosh, I hate saying that out loud, but that's real.
It's natural.
And I'm like fixed to that often. So how do you decouple that?
Well, I mean, I think it's an obvious answer, but it is.
I love that it's an obvious answer for you.
Well, it's just run. You put these ideas forward and you test. You put them in front of as many people as you can. I mean, my dear friend David Schoenthal, who teaches with me at Kellogg, he's among many things, he's a design thinking expert. And so, one of the things that design thinkers think about is what is the, how are people, what's the insight I can draw from someone using this tool, this product, this service, this whatever, this idea. And so you watch that and you really go deep and listen to people. And that's, I think, that's how the best ideas bubble up. But that is so messy because we're all messy. And so, what I always say to my students, and you may remember this from our course together, but what I always say at the end of the quarter is make sure you're carving out some time in your year to just run some experiments. You might figure out at the end of the year, they all sucked. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great because you're learning stuff. But you might get to the end of the year and you go, oh my gosh, this idea or this experiment, that prototype is going to become real.
It's so interesting. I love these one-liners. And so I have this one written down: success preaches and failure teaches. And that seems to be the message here, which is success only teaches you one way to do it. And every time you fail, you have the opportunity to learn what worked and what didn't.
Well, let's go there because you asked me a few minutes ago, where am I messy? I'll tell you another place I'm messy. I get feedback because I ask for it almost every day, almost every single day. Not every day, but almost. So 3 to 5 times a week, I get feedback. And it's messy because I ask specifically for a did well, that feels good, but I also ask for a do differently. It does not feel good because I want to be a high performer. Like you, I want my ideas to succeed. I want everything that comes out of my mouth to be brilliant. Well, it ain't. And so when I get to do differently, which again, I get almost on a daily basis, that's a little messy because that's me trying to figure out, that's me trying to prototype a better me. But I can only improve that prototype through someone else's eyes. So that's messy part one. Messy part two is sometimes my reaction to the do differently is messy. I mean, you've seen this. You've given me do differentlies where I kind of go, like, I'm a little, that touches a little nerve. And I'm like, oh, okay, shit. I don't want to hear that. Right. And that.
But isn't that a signal? When something triggers a nerve for you, doesn't that mean there's discordance? I thought I got it right. Yes. They saw it totally differently. Holy shit, I got to pay attention.
Yeah, well, and I'm laughing, Ari, because so yes is the short answer, and the more fun and funny answer is in that first instance, that discordance, I may go, Ari's wrong, I'm right, of course. But then the next day, I'm going to get the same feedback from somebody else. I'm going to go, oh, okay, there's pattern recognition. I actually suck at this. I need to improve this. So it's just great. I mean, it's such a, we say feedback is a gift, and it truly is, but it ain't easy.
Yeah, 100%. I'd love to go to a moment that changed you, if you're ready to. There are many moments that changed you.
There's many moments, but I think I know what you're talking about.
I want to talk about, this amazing superhuman leg that's next to me.
Yeah.
And I want to venture into that journey and get a little messy.
Let's go there. Lead me.
Can you take me to the moment of the diagnosis and what led up to it, and then what happened afterwards?
Sure. So you are correct to say that I sit before you. I'm wearing a literal supercomputer on that is my right knee. 3.5 years ago, I was sitting on an airplane with my wife and 2 kids. We call ourselves Team Wortmann. So Team Wortmann was ready to go. We were on the tarmac at O'Hare to go into safari in Africa, believe it or not. So a lifelong dream to be fulfilled. And I unfortunately checked my email and had an email from my physician that I had a rare and aggressive cancer on my right shin. And that was a devastating blow. What led up to that, so go backwards for half a second, what led up to that was just a lump on my shin, didn't hurt. You know me, I'm an active guy. I dance, I run, I kick the stairs every once in a while. I just figured, hey, I hurt myself. And it got a little bigger, and so it got a little
something
scary.
Like that.
Yeah, a little quarter-sized thing became, a $50 or whatever back in the day. And it became a lump. And, it's like you push on it, like, this doesn't hurt, but it's kind of weird looking. So, one thing led to another, and I went in. So I got the diagnosis. That was really, really scary.
So you're on the plane, on the tarmac, with your wife and your 2 kids.
Yep, 2 adult kids.
Did you just say, Jill, read this? Did you start crying? What did you do?
Yeah, I handed the phone to my wife. Cried a little bit. Didn't tell my kids. They were behind me, luckily, in the plane, and so just behind us. And we didn't say anything to them because we didn't know much yet. And it actually, this is weird to say, but it was a great trip, and I'm so thankful for the distraction.
So you went on the safari.
Yeah, I crawled through the jungle, looked at great apes. I mean, it is an experience of my life. It just sucked that I had this pall hanging over me.
Were you able to sleep?
No.
Were you were you perseverating on this the whole time? Were you distracted and not in the moment? Or were you able to, when you're in the safari, like when you're at dinner with your kids, what were you like?
I was, so I didn't sleep. I was in my head the whole time, and, which we'll talk about. I was in my head the whole time, but I'm in Africa, and it's ridiculous and beautiful, and the people are beautiful, and I'm, with my kids, and this is a big trip. So at dinner, I was fine. When I hit the pillow at night and it got quiet, all hell broke loose in my head.
So, I know how important Jill is to and for you as a bedrock. How did she show up? What did she do?
Like granite. She was before, and she is today the strongest thing I've ever seen. And she, there's so much to say here. She, in the initial stages, she just said, "This is going to be okay. We're going to figure it out." So there was just that, very pragmatic, not too positive, not too dark, just straight down the middle. Like, let's solve this as a problem. But also at the same time, just was there for me as I was going through the ups and downs. Like, I'm going to die. And then the next day, okay, this is going to be okay. And then the next day, okay, I'm going to die. Have I got my shit together for my kids? Have I got my shit together for you? Because I'm going to die. They said rare and aggressive. We don't know if it's in my body. It's on my shin, but we don't know if it's up in my body. So how long do I have? Just all the things. And she was just there and just absorbed all of that yuckiness. It's unbelievable. As did my kids when we revealed it to, they're adults. So we sat them down and just said, here's the deal. And they have been, oh God, they've been fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you get that diagnosis, you go on the safari, you come back, and what unfolds?
So 3 months of radiation treatment, hoping to reduce this sucker and cut it off the front of my shin and just be done with it. And to make a really long story short, one day went in for surgery to get that done, to get it removed. And they've said, Craig, we might have to bone graft your shin a little bit because we got to dig down and make sure we get a margin on this cancer. But, this should be fine. They woke me up, never forget this, and this is going to be a really strange part of the story. But they woke me up, so I'm under. And they wake me up, and I look up from a laying prone position, and I see my wife crying, and she's a rock.
Oh, my God.
And I see the two doctors, and I see their faces.
Did you think you were dead or something?
So I thought I was going to die. I thought they were going to tell me you're so out of it, right? I thought they were going to tell me I'm already dead, or you're dead, like you're going to die. Because the look on their faces was just horrifying. And then they said, and they had just told my wife this 5 minutes before down the hall, because they were waking me up to tell me this. They said, it's in your knee. We have to take your leg. And here's the weird part of the story. I was relieved because I'm looking at them thinking, this is good. My wife, to see her face, I could read it. I can read it. I've been reading it for 30 some years, more than that. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. And then they tell me I'm just going to lose my right leg. And I didn't laugh. I was out of it, but I was like, oh, okay. And they were surprised, like, what is this guy's problem? Because I really thought, and I explained to them later. They were like, why did you react in such a bizarre way? It's like, I thought you were going to tell me I was going to die, and now you're just it's just a leg.
Let's call it let's a 20-second timeout here, right? How ironic is it that doctors, right, miss this? They wake you up from anesthesia in the middle of surgery, and they're like, "Why are his emotions off a little bit?"
It's still one of the most. It's probably the most bizarre thing through this crazy 3-year life I've lived. This crazy experience, but and that then things got really bad and dark. But that was a moment where I was like, "Oh, okay." And then they, weirdly, a week later, which is another bad, yucky part of the story that we do not want to tell, but it's, they opened up, my whole leg was opened up because they had to figure out where this cancer was and how far it had gone. And luckily, it was only in my knee and not all the way up inside my body, right? So it was in my knee. So the knee had to go. And a week later, they took me in and they took, I'm what's called an AKA, above the knee amputee. Yeah. So I'm lucky that I have a bunch of my right leg, but it ends before the knee, sadly. Because when you lose 2 joints, it's a real bitch.
It's a real hard time. So it was dark that week.
Yeah.
What was
But
happening?
I still had no idea what I was getting into.
Right.
So I'm sitting at home with a leg that's open because they didn't close it up because they're like, we're going to take it anyway. So just go sit at home with some ice on it, which was weird and yucky. But I had no mental idea because I still had 2 legs.
Yeah, so you're a positive guy, and you exude, right, positive, loving energy. I also know you get mad.
Oh yeah.
Like, what the fuck did you do in that moment? Like,
Yeah.
I would have been losing my marbles.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was for a time. I mean, I was really raw, and I was really. I mean, anger doesn't even describe it. I mean, there's a methodology that is close to, it's like a cousin of post traumatic stress disorder, which is post traumatic growth. It's 9 stages. Starts with despair. And I will tell you, my friend, in the weeks and even months after my amputation, I was in despair. And that is a place I have never been before, and I never want to visit again. That is a very scary place.
Can you describe that for us?
Because it's deeper than depression, of course. There's depression, which I don't know that I've ever. I'm sure I've been depressed in my life because I've had bad things happen. But this one, this changed my identity. I'm a dancer. I'm a marathon guy. I'm a runner. Like I'm a crazy, nutty, water skier. All the things, and not anymore. All in one day. And so I went, and I just didn't know what despair is like, but as you can well imagine, it is dark.
It who am I going to be? Who am I now? What am I going to do? Was it
those questions didn't even come for weeks? It was, do I want to even do this anymore? Do I want to be this guy? It wasn't even like, who am I? It was like, I don't want to be this. I don't care who I am. I don't want to be here.
Were there suicidal thoughts?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay.
Oh hell yeah.
So this is and how did you get through that? How did Jill get through that?
My wife, my kids.
Okay.
Just being there. Just my wife, my daughter flew home from San Diego, and my son flew home from San Diego, and I met him at the door of my bedroom because I'm home, right? And I have one leg because you can't get a prosthetic leg for like 6 months because your leg's healing and changing. Your body's changing. So that's weird. And so I got one leg. So you're on crutches, right? Because how do you get you start with a walker and then you go to crutches. And just my kids and of course Jill on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis, but my kids walking in the room and seeing me as a different physical specimen with nothing below my right above my knee, and just smiling at me and giving me a hug and saying, hey man, I love you. This doesn't change anything. Doesn't change anything. You're still my dad. It's a leg. Like, that's crazy.
So they gave you this strength.
It's crazy.
So no matter how strong you are alone, right, you're stronger together. So
always and forever.
The quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life, right?
Yep.
So, while we've talked about everything being selling, right? By being there, and I would say arguably loving and helping others is what you do, right? Whether we call it, whatever the sales definition is, you're showing up and you're caring in those moments.
Yeah, just trying to help.
So you have a network of people then that are really there for you. Were there others there? I mean, did you feel like you had support from other people?
Oh my God, my fellow Kellogg professors, who are, some of them are really close friends of mine, just coming over and just sitting with me and joking around. I mean, one of my favorite stories is I wake up in the ICU. I got one leg, and 90 minutes after I am awake, I get an email from my friend David, and he's a Kellogg professor, and he says, this beautiful email, man, we're thinking of you. The whole community's pulling for you. We love you. And, oh, by the way, when is it too soon to start joking about this? And I laugh. I'm on full drugs. God knows what I was on, because I'm 90 minutes waking up. And I started laughing in the ICU. And, everybody's like, why is this lunatic laughing? But it was just stuff like that, just people being there for me. People came out of the woodwork.
So it's okay in the deepest and darkest moments to let people love you.
Yeah.
And
you have to.
Even if you have your shit together, there's going to be a moment in your life where you're not.
Oh, yeah. Moments. Yeah. The research suggests that I read a lot of research while I was laying in bed because I was trying to answer the question for myself, like, what is resilience and how do I do it? Because once I had
you've talked
decided,
about resilience a whole lot in your sale, like,
oh,
all of it
forever.
for years before that.
Yeah, years and years, and thought I knew a thing or two, Ari. Didn't, and I did, but not like this. Oh God, had to learn it all over. I read a bunch of research, and what the research suggests is any normal human adult life, if we're lucky enough to live into our years, we will go through 36 periods of transition. 3 to 5 of them are what the research calls life quakes. The other ones are what I call tremors because they had life quakes. So I was like, well, why aren't the other ones tremors? So there's tremors, right?
Well done.
And it's a bad boss, a bad breakup. And then there's life quakes. I've just been through a life quake.
Oh my God.
I've been through one of my big ones.
When did you start coming out of it? So it was a rough couple months,
That is a moment. So there is a moment I can identify.
Give me that story.
I was in despair. I would stand in my bedroom window and watch my wife drive. She goes to F45 every morning. And I would watch her drive away, and I would just stand there on my crutches and bawl because I couldn't even walk, let alone, I was doing you'll love this. I was doing dips on my walker. I'd get up and do dips on my walker. That was my workout.
God.
So, but I'd watch her drive away, and I realized after a period of time, month-ish, I'm in full despair. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. And then that started to, the grip of that started to loosen. And I, stages-wise, I probably moved into depression.
Did you need medication? Did you need anything
no,
for that?
I'm not the first week, first couple of weeks I needed medication just to get over the physical trauma of the thing. But I'm a guy that I don't even take aspirin. Like, I don't take Advil, like, ever, once a year maybe.
Right.
And so I'm just not that guy. So, and nothing against it. I just don't. And I realized that the grip of despair was loosening a little bit. And I had been reading research on resilience and decision making and mindset and post-traumatic growth and yada yada. And I realized from the stuff I was reading that one of the techniques of resilience is to make a decision when you're going to stop wallowing. And that really hit me because I am a pretty very disciplined guy. And I thought, that makes sense to me. I'm wallowing. In 2 months' time, so about 3 months out from surgery, I said, I'm going to stop wallowing.
So it wasn't that moment. It was, I'm giving myself permission
To wallow.
For
a while, because this hurts like hell, and it's horrifying, and my head is completely wrong, and I'm going to wallow. But I'm going to wallow for a couple more months, and I'm going to start getting my act together. And of course, you don't turn it off like a light. You can't. So wallowing continues after 3 months. But I made a decision, and it's remarkable that this actually works. I teach resilience now, and I'm like, you just kind of, if you're in it, you got to trust me on this. But it works, and I know the moment. So I said to Jill, coming up on 3 months. Next Tuesday or whatever it was, I want to get in the car and I want to drive to Wisconsin. I want to meet you there. And we had a little tussle because she's like, I'll drive. And I said, no, I need to drive myself. She's like, Craig, you got one leg. I said, yep, I'm going to drive myself because I need to get, I haven't been out of the house in 3 months.
So she knew in that moment that she had to get out of the way.
And so, and I said, I'll meet you up there. And the reason I wanted to do that was because I needed to be able to show myself that I could do it. And the other reason is I wanted to get her some flowers because I hadn't left the fucking house in 3 months. So I go on this drive and all the way. So I know there's a Whole Foods halfway to Wisconsin. So it's an hour and a half. And I know there's a Whole Foods there. And I want to get some flowers. And all the way there, I'm in my head and it's all dark. Like, what if I fall in the parking lot? What if I slip? What if I horrify somebody with one freaking leg? What if I can't carry the flower? Like, what if? It's all dark. It's all negative. And I get to Whole Foods and I get on my little arm crutches and I go in the store, and they were amazing. You know, they get the flowers for me. The woman actually pulled my wallet out of my back pocket, paid, and put it back in my back. Like, just like all the things. And I was super grateful. And then I'm standing there and I realize I got to go to the bathroom. I have another hour and a half to drive. So I said to the woman, "I'm sorry, ma'am, where's the men's room?" And she points all the way down the Whole Foods, all the way at the end. She said, "Sir, I'm so sorry. It's all the way at the end." And I said, "No, no problem." And she hooks the flowers under my finger, because I got my arm crutches. And I crutch down the hall. And there's one person at the end of the hall. And it's probably a 6 or 7-year-old kid. There's no one else around. His parents must have been shopping. He's standing there, this little kid. I only got one word out of him, and that was his name, and his name is Munjeeb. Little Munjeeb is standing. He's seen a one-legged man coming his way. And I'm crutching down there, and I'm asking myself, I'm realizing in the moment what it's like now to be an amputee and all of life's many weird little indignities. Because I'm asking myself, how am I going to get in the men's room? Because if you're on one leg and crutches, you have to lean into the door. And if you lean too hard, you fall into the men's room. And if you don't lean hard enough, you don't get in. So I'm all the way in my head again. And I'm crutching down, and I see this little young man. And for some reason, he sees me coming, and his eyes are like the size of saucers seeing me coming. And he walks over to the door, and he pushes it open for me. And so I crutch up into the door, and I'm standing over this kid. And I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Munjeeb," looking at me with these big eyes. And I said, "Munjeeb, you have no idea how much you're helping me right now. Thank you so much."
Oh.
And he just looks at me. And so there's a wall there, so you can't see in the men's room, right? So I go around the wall, and I do my business. 30 seconds later, I'm washing my hands, standing on one leg, with my crutches in the corner. And I'm like, how in the hell am I going to get out of this room? Because if you think pushing doors open is hard with one leg, pulling is a whole other thing. And I go around that little wall.
And he's there.
And he's still holding the door. I will never, ever forget that. How he knew. No one told him. There was no one there but the two of us. No one told him. I didn't ask him. How he knew how to do that. And in that moment, I knew this sucks, but it's going to be okay. Because if a 6-year-old kid can take care of me, I'm going to be okay.
What an amazing story.
I knew in that moment.
Wow. And how is it now for you?
It's getting better.
Yeah?
Just had my 3rd anniversary. I'm not running yet. And you know that I have a goal to run, and I will get there.
You will run.
I will run. I got a little ahead of myself. I bought the leg already, but I haven't run on it yet. It's that big, cool blade. It looks sick. It's so cool.
You got a blade.
I got a big blade, and that's going to be terrifying and fun. But I'm doing well. You know, it started with if I could tolerate, because it was very painful at the beginning, very painful, tolerate 3 minutes on a treadmill. I mean, you know, I'm a guy who, I ran a marathon. Like, this running is not a big deal.
Right.
And now 3 minutes walking clunkily and horribly on a treadmill and painfully. And I just walked 60 minutes the other day on a treadmill.
Amazing. But let's talk about pain for a second.
Yeah.
Where is the pain, right? Is the pain up here, or is it the phantom leg? What are you dealing with? Most people don't know. I mean, amputees know these things,
Yeah.
but
My biggest challenge has been the phantom pain. So I can feel my right foot as I sit here with you. I feel it. It's burning. And what's weird about it, though, and God, if there's any amputees listening and you're recent, hear me now. It's horrible at the start. It's pain. What I feel now is not pain. And this is the miracle, and you know infinitely more about this than I do. It's the miracle of the human body. Because I don't know. I can't tell you, and I will never know, whether it's me getting used to the pain or is the pain actually going away. I don't care.
either way,
I could care less.
It's downward trajectory.
It's downward sloping. And man, for the first too long, it was physically painful. I mean, it hurt to step because the foot was on fire. And in some sense, it's still there and it's still on fire. but it doesn't present as pain anymore. It's just
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
It's just there. So as you think about your elbow, it's there,
Yeah.
right? But you don't think about your elbow. So I don't think about it that much anymore, which is awesome.
So what does the rebuilding look like for you now? I mean, you're a guy that likes to make, you break it up into phases. You have stories about it. Like, so you had this despair, then you had your and I don't want to pass over this beautiful moment, right? You wanted to leave the house to get your wife flowers.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing, right? That's super cool and amazing. And then you had Manjeet,
Mm.
right? Who I'll remember his name forever. What were the stages and phases thereafter, emotionally, physically, mentally?
Yeah, it's cyclical. I mean, it's we study it, and I teach it as a linear process. And of course, life is not linear, right? But in order to lay it out, yeah, it's a linear process. And you say, depending on the event that causes the need for resilience, life quake or a tremor, you go deeper into that stage. Something completely tragic, you may start in despair like I did. Sometimes people start in depression. Sometimes I think the next one is sadness, and the next one's anger, or I might have those reversed, but something like that. You might start in sadness, you might start in anger. So it is very cyclical. And what I've been discovering about myself and my resilience journey is that it's kind of cool to share this, and then I'll tell you the messy side of it. The cool thing is, as you get later in the process, so the 9 stages of the post-traumatic growth, the last 3 stages are discipline, goal setting, and optimism. And I am somewhere right now in my journey, 3 years in, between discipline and goal setting. I'm toggling between those two. I haven't reached optimism yet, but I can see it in the distance. I can see the train light in the tunnel, and it feels really good because I will get there, and I will be optimistic about this. But right now, I'm toggling between discipline. But, Ari, here's the messy part. I was in a hotel room in L.A. after a talk, and I was wearing a suit. I was all fancy, but I had just gotten done. And I'm in my hotel room, and I stepped to the right to go brush my teeth in my hotel room, and I forgot for half a second that I have an artificial leg on my right side, and I just crumpled to the ground. I just fell in my hotel room like an elderly person would. And I went right back to anger. I was just enraged. Like, why does this happen to me? Why is this me? And look, I didn't hurt myself, didn't tear my suit, which I have done, didn't tear my suit, so I didn't wreck anything. I wasn't hurt. It's carpet. Just got my ass up off the ground. And now what I'm finding about myself, I can get quicker back to discipline and goal setting.
So you're having practice with the negative emotions,
Yeah.
and you're figuring your way out. So it's not all about sunshine and rainbows.
Oh, God. And it's not linear.
And it's not linear.
So if I walk out of here today and I trip, I'll go back to anger. But a year ago, I just spent 3 days there.
Right.
Now I can spend 3 minutes there.
What surprised you most about who you are becoming in this process, right? After this life quake?
What I think it's teaching me, and I hope I'm getting better at, is what I just described, which is going to the ceiling and looking down on the contents of my mind and saying how much is garbage and how much is stuff that's going to cause me forward progress. That's what I'm getting good at. Because like if I tripped when I walk out of here, I'd be pissed. I'd be embarrassed. I might be hurt. And I'd be angry. Like it hurt. You get angry when you get hurt, right? And now I think I'm getting better at, and in those moments that I need resilience, because I still need resilience on all the mundane stuff that happens in my life. Like it's not all about the leg.
Of course.
And what I'm realizing is I'm getting better and faster at going to the ceiling quickly and going, okay, Craig, look on the contents of your mind. Is this shit that's swirling around, is that helpful to you? And again, that can sound Pollyanna-ish, and I don't mean it to be. It's just realistic. Like, what of the shit that I'm telling me in my head? What of the conversation in my head is useful?
Matters?
And how might I turn it now to something that will cause me forward motion?
Right. What are the pieces that I need to hold on to close this deal?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like I'm looking at this thing and saying, all right, these are the significant data points for
Yeah.
this deal to make sense and to move forward, right?
Yeah.
Because it's about forward progress for you.
It's about forward progress. One of the sort of metaphors that I like to share, if we're on this topic, is just staying on this for a second, is when I teach this, I will say something like this. When this happened to me, it was my whole world. It was just the new world I was in. It was the whole world. And then as I progressed, it was, just to run with the metaphor, it was the size of Texas. And then it became the size of a house, and then a car. And now it fits in a box. And so I'm getting better at putting it back in the box and just sticking the box on the shelf. Somehow that weird metaphor works for me. Because when it comes out of the box and it spills all over the goddamn floor, you go, no problem, man. Just pick it up.
Right.
Put the lid back on the box and shove it on the shelf. Walk out of the room. Let's go. Let's go.
So it's not holding you back anywhere near the way it once did.
No, and in weird ways it does, but no, I'm pushing through that.
Amazing. That's amazing. God, I have all these places I want to go. Is there anything you want to talk about?
I want to talk more about discipline because you've coached me a lot on this, and I've learned a lot from you.
Great. Where do you want to go? What are your major principles within discipline?
Well, let me ask you a question. So, I think a lot about trying to create magnetic and unstoppable salespeople and sales leaders. That's my mission.
Mm-hmm.
And as students or out in life with clients.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I always love to explore with you, and I want to ask you, is what daily disciplines do people need to keep the power plant ready to do all the hard work of sales? Because sales is really hard. You get knocked down. You get lots of people say no to you. You have to prospect. You have to close. You have to hear no. What are the disciplines that keep you rigorous throughout that?
So I think that there's a couple. I love this. There's a couple of things that come to mind immediately, right? So this might be an incomplete answer, but here are a few. So first, I think there are the basics, right? Of what do you need to do to sell, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you're doing, right? Like, what are the necessary practices? How do you prep for the meeting, right? What do you need to do in the meeting? How do you prepare for disasters within the meeting? All the stuff that you've already talked about.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that kind of discipline. And that's to get in the game, right? To become an all-star, right? You have to see the field. You have to play the field. You have to anticipate where the ball is gonna be, right? Metaphorically speaking, so that you know how to close the opportunity in front of you, right? So you know how to handle the objections. You know how to get to no really quickly, because everybody is chasing a yes. It's one of the things I learned in life is it's really, really, really advantageous to get clear on no, right? The sooner you get to no, right, the easier it becomes, right? The slow maybe is the worst place to be, right? And that is where many
So
people,
true.
I think, get really, really stuck, right? Because a yes is a yes, and they'll close quick, and there's a process there, and a no is a no. But not a lot of people like to say no. And what I've found as a salesperson myself in life is that people find it really hard to say no to me, right? So I often try and clarify and qualify that.
Love that.
So I think all stars, right, become really good at understanding those things. They get their skills, right?
Yep.
And they rinse and repeat and they do it over, right? It's predictable. They can get the outcome they want, right?
Yes.
And they know what's needed. What I think about from a Hall of Famer perspective, right, is something totally different, which is that they own their ugly. So they know where they suck, right? They know what their warts look like. And there is a self-awareness of what they can do and what they can't do. And instead of trying to hide it and be perfect, they own their imperfections. And that becomes wildly powerful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of things I suck at. Great. That doesn't make, once you disentangle what that might mean for you, right? You put it in its appropriate box. it becomes wildly powerful in what you're capable of doing. So,
Well, and what you're making me think, Ari, is that, and then take that to the next logical extension. Once you realize what you're not great at, you can get support for those things.
100%.
Which is, you can figure out ways to get support for that.
So, one of the things I talk about medically all the time is I talk about the content, what's happening head to toe inside of a human being. And then I talk about the context, what's happening in the environments and what are the interactions of people and communities and all that are affecting them, right? And I find that that's super critical because all of that are like spheres of influence for that individual.
I love that framing. What
about you?
Disciplines. I mean, well, you've taught me, the teacher becomes the student. I mean, you've taught me a lot about health and fitness. And, on some level, I've been good at that. I think you've really fine-tuned. There was a time when you had a tracker that I would input all of my meals and everything I drank and ate, and you would coach me on it. And I treasure those times because you taught me a lot that has stuck with me. They've become habits. So I'm super thankful for that. So going all the way to the base level, the power plant, food, sleep, I sleep like a madman. It's so funny because my students are like, Craig, you have 3 freaking jobs. Like, how do you, so you just don't, you're one of those guys that you sleep like 2 hours a night? Like, no, I sleep like 9 hours a night. Like, wait, how, what? And it's like, we've got to maintain the power plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I didn't even talk about fundamentals, right? And I jumped to all this other stuff. The fundamentals are critical, right? So if you're not balanced, if you're not doing the things that allow you to show up well, and you don't understand how those inputs matter and influence you, then you can't really get to become an all-star if you don't understand the fundamentals of who you are, right? And the principle of understanding know thyself, I think, is just wildly important because it enables you to choose the moments, right, to show up and, as my kids might say, show out.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, show up and show out.
I like that.
Yeah.
Not heard that before.
And you're able to disentangle when you fail. Like, it's just not that big of a deal, right?
Yeah.
Public or private, right? So you let go of that ego piece. And, I think about where I was when I started business school and when I was doing business school and how I cut sleep. And that was a choice. And, what's the phrase? Youth is wasted on the young. It is so very true. And there are moments in time when you can do that. But, man, is this a sacrifice? What I know now in terms of, like, physical performance, cognitive ability, emotional stability, right? It's wild.
Well, and we don't need to bounce back to resilience, but man, one of the things my doctors said when I came out of surgery was, you are so lucky. And, luck is part of it. Of course, luck is part of it. But it was also just daily disciplines. You're so lucky you're thin and in shape. Because if you weren't, it'd be very, very unlikely that you would walk again.
Is it obvious to most people that you were going to be selling of some sort, conversational, in front of people? Like, were you a showman as a kid? Were you a class clown? Were you yeah.
Selling, no. Class clown, showman, yeah. I mean, I was always a loudmouth. I was always in trouble. Because I love I'm mischievous. I just love to screw around. To this very day, I ride my electric scooter like fast through the hallways at Kellogg on the 3rd floor. Like, people got to jump out of the way.
So you ride an electric scooter
with one leg.
With one leg.
Yep. That's quite a thing. That's some balance right there.
Do you wear a helmet?
Of course.
Good.
Of course. I'm your friend. Of course you know.
Good.
You're my guy.
Good.
You're my doctor.
Good.
So that I was always a bit of a punk kid, and so that's true. Selling, no. Like I graduated from college. I went to Washington to be in help be an intern for politics. So,
is selling getting boring for you?
Oh God, no.
No.
The beautiful
Why?
thing, the reason selling is the best profession, let's just be clear, it's the best profession. The reason it is, you're solving a different, this sounds so Pollyannish, it's not. It's the legit truth. You're just solving a different problem every day.
So you're sort of becoming you're like I was going to use the Yoda but you're a master sales guy, right? And so do you ever find it hard to teach the new stuff or teach newbies about it? In the classroom, you go through this stuff and, there's a lot of literature about once you become specialized at something, it becomes hard to teach the early stuff that you were once good at.
Oh, I see where
So
you're going.
like it's you become a hyper specialist, and you only want, in order to get like the stimulus, you only want the bigger deals, the biggest things, the
No. The short answer is no, Ari, and it's because of something we've already talked about and you've already mentioned, which is because it is pervasive, because you do it. I have a course that I call Selling Yourself and Your Ideas. You are selling yourself and your ideas every day. And so for that reason, it is for new people. So am I a specialist in sales? Yeah, but that'd be like saying I'm a specialist in persuasion. Like it's
yeah.
it's I don't think of myself that way. I just think of myself as someone who I think a lot about the knowledge, skill, and discipline required in that moment over there versus this moment over here. Big deal, small deal, difficult client, easy client,
You're always analyzing.
Europe
You're
versus
figuring it.
Asia.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to figure out like what are the nuances. I mean, one of the things I love thinking about and I'm learning right now is as my business expands into Europe, into Asia, that's a different motion. So what is something like establishing rapport look like in China
Yep.
or in Amsterdam versus Chicago, which is in my blood?
So help me understand when you get a yes, but you need to say no. So does that make sense, or do I need to elaborate?
God, I'm going through it literally today.
One of the things that I find is that everybody who is in whatever form of sales is looking to close the deal.
Yeah.
And you have to qualify the lead, right? You have to prospect, you have to qualify, and you have to get them to close.
Yep.
And asking if this is a good fit is often mired when you're trying, or mired or just missed or avoided when you're trying to hit sales goals.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that you get good yeses, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes you get a yes and it needs to be a no.
It sure does. I'm going to come at it, Ari, two different ways. And I'm going to start with mindset. Everything always starts with mindset. So if your mindset in sales is that sales is helping people make progress in their lives, and now you go to a deal. So let's get concrete. You go to a deal, Craig meets Ari. Ari seems like a nice guy. My job early on in that relationship, first of all, my job in sales, if we want to break it all the way down, is to find Ari. Often that is the function of marketing. We always say, I'm a sales guy, so we always say, and I love my marketing brothers and sisters, but we always say to salespeople, don't wait for leads, don't wait for marketing. You create your own luck. Go get the leads, and that's really, really hard because I have to call Ari, and I got to call 10,000 Aris, and I get a meeting. Okay, now the sale begins. My job, if my mindset walking into your room, your office, your Zoom, whatever, is helping you make progress, by definition, then my behaviors are going to follow. And I'm going to ask you lots of questions, and I'm going to listen. And so what that then begets is as you say your stuff, in other words, as you articulate and lay out for me the progress that you uniquely are trying to make, which is why sales is so interesting all the time, and I'm truly listening, there are going to be things you say that are directly in my strike zone that I can accomplish and I should sell you, and there are going to things you're going to say that are not in my strike zone. I need to name both. Let me say that again. I need to name both. Great elite salespeople say, Ari, I'm making this up. You've said you have 9 different things you need to accomplish here. 6 of those things we can crush for you. 3 of those things are out of our strike zone. Now, you and I need to figure out whether this is a relationship that should proceed. Can you imagine a salesperson saying something like that to you? I hope you can. This is where people get stuck on sales because they've never had someone say that to them before. And let me tell your audience, if there's sellers listening and you say that, you're going to win. You're going to win almost every time. It's just magic. But it's not. It's the stupidest, it's not stupid. It's the easiest, most straightforward human thing to do because it's the right thing to do. Now, if I say, Ari, there's 9 things here, only 3 of which are in the center of my strike zone, The next move here is for me to recommend you to 2 other people in my network because I am not the right fit. Can you imagine someone saying that to you?
Yeah, so that's about technical aspect. I want to build on that because I want to offer another layer here, which is going back to the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships. And so I know this about you, and you do it, which is there's a zero tolerance policy for assholes, right?
Yep.
So, how are you filtering and how are you teaching this to other people for how to filter for interrelational fit? Right?
Yeah.
Is this deal going to, I can sign a deal, but this might be the most toxic, difficult deal to get through, right? Like, if
Yeah.
we're not right.
Well, so I'm not sure I'm going to answer your question, so just coach me on this. But I go sort of 2 places on that question, which is, one is, you're going to realize if you're spending time in questions, otherwise known as staying in the question, and I'm asking you questions, you're going to reveal yourself. You're going to reveal whether you're a great guy, whether this is a difficult culture, whether you're an asshole, whether your expectations are so far out in outer space I could never live up to them, whether you're price sensitive. If I stay in the question, I'm going to gain so much insight into what you need, the progress you're trying to make, and who you are. And if it reveals that you're not a nice person and we don't want to work with not nice people, that is where I will look you in the eye and say, I won't say, Ari, you're an asshole. What I'll say is, Ari, you know what? Thank you so much for sharing all this information with me. I've got great insights here. It is pointing to we are not the right fit, and I'm sorry for that. And guess what I'm not offering? I'm not connecting you to anyone because you're an asshole. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
So we teach this all the time. I go to a second place. How do you teach this stuff? We have a discipline in our sales engine company that everybody learns right off the bat. It is a discipline that is inserted in every first conversation we have with everyone. And it sounds like this. I'm going to give you a concrete example. We got on a sales call, and I had a bunch of my teammates it was on a Zoom because it was in Amsterdam. Company's in Amsterdam. It's a financial services company. What you learn about Europe is they're much more price sensitive than American companies. So we already know we're in a hole because they were premium priced and they're going to be very sensitive to that. But we don't otherwise know them from anybody. So we get on the Zoom. So we're the first call. Not in the first 2 minutes, not in the first 10 minutes, but 20, 30 minutes in, I said this, and I say it the same way every time. I said, folks, there are several aspects of us and the way we educate sellers and sales leaders that will likely rub you the wrong way. And they said, excuse me? And I said, I want to articulate those because the number one delta between you and us is we're Americans and you're Dutch. And there are some things that I'm going to say and do and things we're going to say and do that you're not going to like. I said that in the first call. So the discipline here is we teach our people to say, to state the obvious in the first call, thereby being able to say to them, and what that means is if we get to the end of this call, I literally said this to these folks in Amsterdam who have become a 4-year client now. So this was like 4 years ago, but it's a good example. Is I said, what that means is when we get to the end of this call, you're going to decide whether this warrants a second call. And if it doesn't, we will connect you with people who would be a better fit. They're probably in Europe because we have a network in Europe. That's just a discipline because what that does, it creates a door.
It opens it up. That
you can then walk through if they're not a good fit for whatever reason, 3 meetings hence. But it also is this really interesting way to show people, not tell them, show them your style of selling. We are here to help you. We will be the first to tell you if we're not the right fit. Now, I want to go back a half a step to your last question, which is, well, you still got to make quota though. So I make a lot of salespeople, you can tell. I mean, you know this. I make a lot of salespeople uncomfortable because I say, you should be walking away from deals all the time that aren't a right fit. And they're like, great, Craig, thank you. Now I won't make my quota. Oh, yes, you will. But what that means is you have to have tremendous discipline because you got to have, if you're going to say, if you know you're going to say no, to 6 out of the 10 people, you better have 30 in your pipeline, which is its own set of knowledge, skill, and discipline.
So what's the most exhausting part of the sales process for you? The most draining part?
The hardest part for me and for almost everyone is what we call proactive pursuit. Let me be really blunt. The cold call is still alive.
Cold call is still alive.
Oh, yes. Phones,
tell me about that.
Phones still work. Everybody has one. And everyone in the age of AI, my friend, you have gone to a nerve, my friend. I love this.
Bring that on. Oh my God. Tell me why it's still alive.
If I had a penny for every salesperson that says, Professor Wortmann, Craig, you're so full of shit. In the age of AI, the cold call is dead. And I say, you know what? You want to believe that because it's hard. You just want to believe that because it's hard. And what we do in our business, I'm going to jump to the end and then we can unpack this if you want. What we do at Sales Engine, because our philosophy is we will never, ever, ever ask you to do anything we won't do, is we say, let's make cold calls right now. I'll make them. Hand me a phone. I got my phone. Hand me a list. I'll make a cold call right now and get you a meeting right now. Because it's not rocket science. It's just knowing what to say and how to say it and be human. Because the phone is very much alive. And in the age of AI and hiding behind our laptops and hiding behind our emails, that's just a crutch. But that is, to answer your question, that's the hardest part.
That's great because...
you want to build a business, you make calls. So I had a meeting day before yesterday. A Googler reached out to a former Googler. She's an entrepreneur now, wonderful woman. She knew me from a classroom at Google because I do a lot of work there. And she called me and said, hey, Craig, I need some advice. I just started a company. And we were having a chat. And I said, well, talk to me about how you're getting leads. And, I'm asking for a reason. I'm listening for certain things. And she starts talking about networking. She's like, well, I'm networking and I'm going to conferences. I said, that's fantastic. Good for you. Can I ask you a really hard question? And she's like, sure. And she knows me well enough to know that she was bracing herself. And I said, so you and your co-founder, how many calls are you making every day before breakfast? She's like, what? And I said, answer the question. How many calls are you making every day before breakfast? You want to build a business? Pick up the phone. It's sitting right there.
So coach me, okay? I find it tremendously hard to have a non-substantive conversation. I
know you.
The fluffy foam is, trivial introductions and connections. Like, I want to know a human fully and as completely as I can. And I'm finding that it's really hard for me to do some of those basic things of going to an economic club event and chatting with everybody, right? A little bit here and figuring out that's cold calling and prospecting, all of it together, right? Mm-hmm. It's harder and harder for me.
Can I push on you?
Yes.
So we're talking about, let's label what we're talking about.
Okay.
We're talking about discipline.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you some goofy questions that I know the answers to.
Okay.
You're at the, I want to label something. When you're at the economic club and there's a bunch of executives there and you're Dr. Levy, you're networking. Let's call it what it is. That's networking.
That's networking.
Okay, because you can imagine the scenario. Like Dr. Levy walks in, there's 100 executives, men and women, blah, blah, blah. And they're all having a glass of wine or a club soda, whatever, right? So let's call that networking. But I want to make it even harder on you. I'm going to go to cold calling in a second. But let's just call it networking. So you walk in the room. Here's the strange questions, a couple of them. Do you believe that guy standing over in the corner having a vodka tonic who's maybe 30 pounds overweight, do you think you, as a physician, do you think you could help him?
If he was interested, yes. If he was open to it.
Do you think you could help him? I know the answer.
Yes.
Okay. So if you could help him, would that help his life and his family? Could you help his life and his family have better outcomes?
Yes.
We know the answer. It's yes. Why wouldn't you go up to him and talk to him and acquire him as a patient? Don't you owe that to him?
So what that brings up emotionally for me is that feels presumptive. Like I know better.
Don't you?
One of the things that I've learned, right? So this I would push back on is I'd say, you can be there. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
But you can. You've done it with me. But okay.
Yes,
I get in principle, you can't force the horse's head into the water. I get it. But
Yes,
you're
I understand
resisting me on an abstract level. Can you help this man?
Yes.
Of course you can.
Yes.
And so, but now let me make it harder, because sales is hard as hell.
Right.
It takes a ton of resilience, and it takes a ton of grit, otherwise known as discipline. So now let's go up 6 feet above the crowd at the economic club. Now there's 100 of those people. What is the job to be done? The job to be done is Dr. Levy talks to almost all of them. Now, by definition, if you do the math, that means you can have a 2-minute conversation. That's discipline. And you just told me, and I know you and I adore you, you just told me that you don't like to have these light conversations. I would argue, and you can disagree with me, I am going to argue that you could construct with a pen and paper, you and I right now could construct a 2 or 3 minute conversation that is substantive and that gets him to say yes to a 10-minute meeting with you next week, which gets him, that we can architect that. That gets him to say yes to a 60-minute evaluation, and that gets him to be a patient, and that gets him 5 years down the road living longer and having better outcomes. That is sales. We have just described Dr. Levy sales, right?
Yeah.
But in order to have all that goodness happen for all those people, you
Have to take the step.
have to be disciplined. You can't go into the corner and talk to one guy. And this is what most people, and I know you, and you don't do this.
So,
but
no. This is so good because this is helpful and it's practical, and oh man, is it real? Especially as the organization grows and all the things that are happening. I mean, it's a necessary condition. I don't know if you'll remember, before shift started, we had a dinner and we were talking about sales and what sales needed, and one of your concerns and your questions was, well, what happens when your Rolodex ends?
yeah,
Right?
what happens?
Right? What happens? And what I know to be true is, whether it's cold calling or networking or creating brand and putting content out there, is like, you have to engage with this world, right?
And can we just go there for a second?
Yeah.
Because where people get in their own way is of just the things you just mentioned. You've got a cold call, you've got a network, you've got to put content out there. Guess what people do? They put content out there. Why? Because it's easy. Because you're sitting behind a laptop and you're playing. Do I make this button orange or do I make it blue? Ain't nobody in your face on that
And
one.
everybody is on. That's what everybody's doing.
Everybody's
right?
doing. Well, guess what the world is all about? Pick up the goddamn phone. It's sitting right there.
So you and I are like, that is so true, right? We default to these social media technology tools when human beings are desperate for interpersonal interaction. Every one of us wants to be seen and heard and understood and connected with.
Yeah. But that begs, and I want to leave this cold calling thing hanging, so let's just go there for a second because it's really important. So now let's make it even harder. Now you come into your office, your laptop's sitting there, tempting you to play with the colors on your website, otherwise known as social media and all this stuff, which, but let me be clear, that's important stuff. I do it too. I post on LinkedIn. I do it too. And your phone's sitting to the right of your laptop, staring at you. And you're alone in your office. There's nobody looking at you. There's no boss breathing down your neck. Do you pick up the phone? Because I will tell you, cold, the best of the best. They pick up the phone. They call that 30-pound overweight or in-shape person, and they say, it's Dr. Levy calling. I know you don't know me. I know I'm interrupting your day. With 5 minutes or less, I believe I can change the way you think about your health. Would you be willing to listen?
Yeah.
Now, you make that call 100 times.
Right.
80 people are going to hang up on you, and that hurts. 10 people are going to be wishy-washy. 10 people are going to, five people are going to give you appointments. 3 of them are going to be your customers. You've just built a business.
Yep.
And guess how many calls you can make in one day? 100. I've done it.
Yeah. And the other thing I also think about is asking for help, right?
Ask for help.
Connect with people, ask where you should go, get out there. Like, you have to get in the game. It's a full contact sport.
It's full
right?
contact
It's not just
sport.
a full contact sport in terms of the conversations you need to have, but you actually have to you have to source. You have to get out there and meet
Yes.
people and connect, and that's where
And social media, this is not an anti-social media. Social media is great for what it's great for. It is not a contact sport.
right.
It is not a contact sport. Social media is hiding behind your laptop. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I do it too. But not most of my day.
Yeah.
I don't.
Right. Love it. What's one belief about leadership that you've changed in the last 10 years?
I used to think when I started my first company, which was a disaster of my own making, I used to think it was about setting the direction. And I now realize, at least for myself, that leadership is about getting feedback and making constant incremental improvement. I thought I needed to know it all. It was so stupid. Got my newly minted MBA, become an entrepreneur, and I'm like, I'm going to lead these people. I had no freaking idea what I was talking about. And now I know that, yeah, I've got to set the direction. I've got to set the general, here's what Sales Engine is about. And Sales Engine's about 3 things. It's really simple. Here's what Sales Engine is about. Now let's together figure out a way. And I, as a leader, need to get frequent feedback. And we've talked about that. Frequent feedback in the process of getting there, because I'm going to stumble. I'm going to fall. So are you. We're going to figure this out. I think that's what's changed for me.
If somebody listening here feels like they're rebuilding, what do you want them to remember?
Every day, do 2 things. 2 things every day. Go to the ceiling. Look down on the contents of your mind. Figure out what are the negative thoughts and emotions that are recurring, that are happening all the time, and see if you can flip them. Not in a cheesy way, but flip them to the positive. That's one. And then the second thing to do is a little trick to do that. Okay. Look around, look to the left, look to the right, see what is great standing right next to you. Be grateful. Awesome. Just see what's right next to you. It's right there. I got in an Uber to come down here, Ari, and one of the things I thought about in the Uber is it's kind of miraculous that I can call an Uber. That's just nuts. Nuts. It's nuts that I can call an Uber. That's me being grateful. In that moment, the research would suggest I am actually healthier in that moment. That I'm going, freaking Uber. What a miracle.
That's awesome. What does strength mean to you now?
What does strength mean?
Yeah.
Shock of all shocks, it's resilience. I mean, for me, I'm living it every day. Strength is just getting up and hitting it every day. That's what strength is.
What do you wish people actually understood about resilience that they might be missing?
That it is very cyclical. It's not linear. And be kind to yourself when you snap back. I have to find kindness for myself when I flash back to anger that I have one freaking leg. I have to acknowledge that it's cyclical, and that's okay.
So you have to hold some grace for yourself.
Yeah, hold some grace and just
Great.
Take a deep breath. Yeah.
What's one thing that pain has taught you that success could not?
That you can really learn to reframe pain in a way that helps you make forward progress. I hope that makes sense.
Yep.
Success is great, but it doesn't make you reflect. And what pain does, and it's no fun, and I don't wish it on anybody, but what pain does is it makes you reflect and realize that you have a lot more strength than you think you have. And that is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, so pain provides perspective.
Tons of perspective.
Talk to me about holding joy and discipline together.
Discipline is joy.
Can you unpack that a little bit for me?
The longer I live, I realize that the daily disciplines I have are what gives me joy.
Yeah.
Like what allows me to be joyous.
Yeah.
It's the daily disciplines. I have this routine that you know of that every morning, even after my leg, every morning at 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning when I wake up, I hit the floor. First thing I do is I roll out of bed. I hit the floor. I do 60 push-ups. And by about 45, I'm starting to burn. And every single day, I get halfway through those push-ups, and I already feel like I've accomplished something. You know, in the moment that I'm burning, is that joyful? No. But it
Totally.
takes how long does it take to do 60 push-ups? Like a minute? Like it's not
Yeah.
not a big deal. But I'm already winning. It's a daily discipline.
By the way, let's just say, Craig Wortmann, how many years old are you?
59.
59 years old, coming close to 60. 60 push-ups in a minute. Pretty amazing, dude. That's wild.
I'm a light guy, so it's not a big
No,
deal.
I'm just appreciating you.
I'm a skinny guy.
I want to take a minute to do two things before we wrap here. One is to ask for feedback. Give me some feedback live on camera of what can get better here.
Well, let's do the feedback model.
Okay,
Can we do it properly?
let's do it.
Ari, let's do feedback. What's one thing in this podcast you think you did well?
I think I held the space for your emotions.
I agree. One thing I think you did, there's a bunch of things you did well, but to stay true to my feedback model called the 2x2 feedback model, I'm only going to give you one because the brain can only process one thing at one time. So there's a lot of things you did well. So I'm bubbling up in real time. The number one thing you did well, your questions are ridiculously good. I mean, you really pushed me to think, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ari, what's one thing you would do differently? If we did it again right now, what would you do differently?
I would prep a little more
Fair?
because I think that some of the language I used could have been a little bit more succinct. And some of the story that I have in my head is about the necessary preparedness to deliver this well.
Okay, that's fair. One thing I would encourage you to think about doing differently is to cut more. Because I felt like you and I both were a little long in the tooth on some of the answers. I know I was a little bit all over the place, and you should have just said, Craig, stop, let's do that again. Because I might, on a second draft, I might have gotten it tighter.
Got it. Craig, what's one thing that you thought you did well in this podcast?
I think I didn't anticipate our conversation about what I call proactive pursuit, cold calling and networking. And I think that went really well. I enjoyed the hell out of that.
I absolutely agree. That was a fun dance together. I also have to say, while you are emotional, you don't always get emotional. I don't know how you are in your classroom these days or with clients, but to have come and done this video and do this podcast and to have gone there with me, I thought was exceptional. So thank you.
Thank you.
What's
Thanks for giving me the floor to do that.
Amen. It's just the beginning. You'll be asked many times.
Love it. Ask away.
What's one thing you thought you could have done better?
A bunch of things. I'm reflecting on the very early part of our conversation. I feel like I didn't do justice to my mom and dad. Like there's so much there, and I was struggling to tell a big story in a tight amount of time, and I kind of butchered it.
Got it. Do you have something you want to say about your mom and dad?
I mean, I think about them every day, and it's awesome. I mean, that's a good thing, right? I think about them every day, and I just think, like any normal human, I wish I could call them and say, "Can you believe what I'm walking over a bridge in Amsterdam, or, I'm doing this cool stuff. Like, this is so cool." And I wish I could tell them. But, man, I am a big believer. We didn't talk about this, but I am such a big believer that we stand on each other's shoulders. We know success. We don't do it ourselves. Like, if we think we do it ourselves, we're so fooling ourselves. Like,
Amen.
We just stand on it. And I stand primarily at the beginning, the foundation, on my mom and dad's shoulders.
Yeah, quiet giants. They were quiet giants. They didn't need to be big in this world, but they were huge to you.
Huge.
Even if, and as a teenager, you didn't really appreciate it, right? As adult, you started to get it. But you've got a Rock and Jill, right? You learned that from somewhere, right? That came from that you guys made that choice, and your two kids and where they're going and what they've been modeled. So
Thanks for saying that. That's
yeah.
very, very nice of you to say.
And then the last thing, right, for me is a debt of gratitude, man. Like I feel like such a lucky human in this world for the experiences that I get to have, for the conversations I get to do. And you've been with me on my journey. And I am so grateful that you took this time. You have a very busy schedule. And I'm glad we connected in November and we had that coffee and that we got this done. And, whatever it is you need, whenever it is that you need it, I am here. I know you know that, but I just, a debt of gratitude, man.
We walk together.
Yeah, we do.
Thanks.
Thank you.